Mimi here of MimiGStyle.com, a fashion, lifestyle, and DIY blog where I teach you how to buy it, make it, mix it, and rock it. Today we're going to do a quick and easy modification of a commercial pattern to create a very simple dress. Now the pattern that we're using is Berta pattern 7065, and we're going to be using the blouse top version of this to create the dress that we want. And so you're going to need some very stretchy knit fabric. It must be something that has a considerable amount of stretch. We're also going to need a tape measure, a pair of scissors, some pattern weights. These are just washers that I get at my local home improvement store. And then you're also going to need a ruler, some either 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch, or 1/2 inch elastic will do, a piece of chalk, and of course you're going to need your pattern. I've already cut out my pattern pieces, as you can see here. This is the front pattern piece to the top, so it's piece number 1. And I've also cut out the back piece, which is piece number 2, and I've cut out a size 6 for myself. Now remember, sizes on patterns don't correspond to ready-to-wear sizes. I wear a size 3 in ready-to-wear. In patterns, I wear anywhere from a 6 to an 8 to a 10, depending on what it is. The pattern measurements are so completely different than what we're used to buying at retail stores, so don't let that confuse you. Don't go based on the number, but instead cut based on the measurements that they give you on the back of the pattern envelope. And for me, that was a size 6. Now the dress on the pattern envelope is lovely. It's very cute, very flirty, very Marilyn Monroe-ish, but it's just not the look that I was going for. I wanted to use the top bodice portion of the pattern, but I wanted to make the bottom a more fitted dress. And so that's really all we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to extend it, and then we're going to sew it together and end up with a finished product. So let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is figure out how long you want your dress. So we're going to measure from our waist down to however long you want that dress to be. Now I want mine to come just above my knee. So from my waist at my smallest part down to just above my knee is about 27 inches. And I'm going to add 2 inches for my hem. So that brings me to 29 inches. So that's the measurement that I'm going to be using. So what you want to do is take your tape measure and you're just going to place it around the smallest part of your waist, and then you're just going to measure down, literally just however long you want. If you wanted a mini, if you wanted to come above the knee, below the knee, just measure down however long that is and write that number down. And you won't be needing very much fabric at all. I'm using about 1.5 yards, not even that actually. It's kind of just a scrap that I had laying around. Then depending on your size, you won't need any more than 1.5 yards to 2 yards of fabric if you could get both your pattern pieces onto your fabric laying next to each other. If you can't lay them next to each other, then you may need to buy additional fabric because you'll need to lay your pattern pieces one on top and then one at the bottom. So I'm going to start with the front piece. Now neither of these are cut on the fold, so we're cutting 2 pieces out at a time. My fabric is folded in half with salvage edges together, the length of my fabric, with wrong sides right sides facing each other, so that I am marking on the wrong side of my fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pattern pieces, I'm going to lay them on my fabric, and this is where I'm going to take that waist measurement. Now on your pattern piece, you're going to notice that there's a little line across it that says waist. That is where we're going to measure down, measure down and mark the measurement that we took. So for me, I said that needed to be from my waist down to above my knee, with my hem included, needed to be at least 29 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape measure, I'm going to put it right up against that waistline measurement, and then I'm going to measure down however long I need this to be. And then I'm going to make a mark. So whatever measurement that was for you, your waistline to wherever long you wanted your dress to fall, you're going to measure from that waistline marking on your pattern piece down and make a mark. Then what you're going to do is, you can see on the side of the pattern piece that it has a curve. Now that's because it's going over your hip. So you want to just follow that using a ruler, just a regular straight ruler. You're going to follow that and you're going to make a line all the way down. And then you're going to make a line across where we made that mark for our length. And then you're going to do the same thing to the other side. Now I have extended this pattern piece. That's all there is to it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut around it. So just following my blue line, I'm going to cut my pattern piece out. I'm going to transfer any markings. So if you see like little tiny dashes, those are your notches. You want to make sure that you make a little tiny slit into those. Those notches are going to let you know when you're sewing the two pieces together, front and back, that you're doing it correctly. In most commercial patterns like Vogue, Butterick, Simplicity, McCall's, they have notches, which are little triangles, but for Berta they use just little tiny lines. So that's what you're going to be looking for. You want to make sure that you make a little cut into those little lines. Here on the side, you're going to notice that there's a little slit, so I'm going to make a little cut. I'm going to look for any additional notches. There aren't any, so I'm going to remove my pattern weights. And now I have my back piece. And I have two. Okay, now we're going to set that piece aside and we're going to cut our front piece. Let me bring this closer to me. I'm going to lay my pattern piece. My grain line is straight. And I know that I need to add that same amount of length to this piece. So you're going to look, for your waistline marking. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to measure from that waistline marking on the front pattern piece down. And you're going to make a mark. Do the same thing with your ruler. You're going to follow the pattern piece and you're going to go straight down. Then you're going to go across and you're going to do the other side the same way. And now you're just going to cut around the entire thing. This wide part that you guys see, this is the top. This is the part that goes around the neck here. And there's a line that says fold. And I want you to just make a little tiny slit right there. It's just going to help you keep things in order. So just make a little tiny snip. And then continue cutting. I'm going to cut across and cut all the way around. I'm going to make sure that I transferred all of my notches and made my slits where I need them to be. I did. Now I'm going to remove my pattern weights. And now I have the front of our dress. Two pieces for the back. That's all we need to cut out. Now we can get to sewing. Okay, so you guys know that you should finish off all of your edges as we're sewing along. I'll let you know where you should be finishing edges with your serger if you have a serger. If you're using a knit fabric, it's not going to unravel, so there's really no need, except that it looks very nice, finished and professional. For the sake of the tutorial, I am not going to be serging edges, but you should if you have one. So first we're going to start with our back pieces. So grab both your back pieces, and we're going to sew the center back seams together. Your back pieces should look like this. This is the top, okay? And the part that you see here, this little squared off top, that's the side of the dress. So the flat part here is going to be the center back. So what you're going to do is you're going to put them with right sides facing. Of course, the right side, the side that people are going to see, is going to be facing each other. And we're going to pin at the top. This is going to be the back center seam, or the center back seam. And you want to pin at the bottom, and then maybe again a couple of times, just so that you can keep both layers aligned as you're sewing. And then I'm going to use one more pin at the center. Now we're going to be sewing from the bottom of the dress up. Now starting at the bottom and using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're not going to be using 5/8. We're going to be using a 1/2 inch seam allowance and a straight stitch. Now my sewing machine can be set for stretchy fabric, so it does a straight stitch that has a little tiny bit of a zigzag. If you want to use a zigzag stitch, you can. You just need to make sure that it's very, very narrow, almost where you can't tell that it's a zigzag stitch. Or if your sewing machine does have a stretch stitch, then you can select that. Otherwise, a straight stitch will be fine. Okay, now that we have sewn our center back seam, when you open it up, you'll see that this is now our full back piece. If you have a serger, you might want to serge this edge and cut off any excess. If you don't, then you can just leave it and press it open like this with your iron. Just give it a good little press. You always want to press your seams. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the casing for the back, because the back piece has an elastic across the top. So what you want to do is you want to finish the top edge of your dress, of the back piece. Once you've done that, we're going to turn it over 5/8 of an inch. And you're going to sew close to the edge. You want to leave as much space as possible so that you can at least sift through a 1/2 inch piece of elastic. So I'm folding over 5/8 of an inch and then sewing close to the edge. Now if you want to press this first, you can, or if you want to fold over your 5/8 and then pin it to keep it together, you can also do that. I'm just going to eyeball it. Now what you're going to do is you're going to cut a piece of elastic. Now in the instructions for this dress, it tells you in step number 2 how big your elastic needs to be. Now for a size 6, they had me cut a 13-inch piece of elastic. Go see what your piece of elastic needs to be as far as how long a piece to cut. And then you're going to put your safety pin through the top of one end. And you're going to just thread it through. You don't want to lose the other end. When you get close, just go ahead and pin it so it doesn't go inside of the casing. Pull your elastic out so that there's about a 1/4 inch tail hanging out, and you're just going to make a couple of stitches to secure it. Now remove your pin, pull about a 1/4 inch out again, and then just tack it down a couple times. And now our casing is done. You can go ahead and snip off the excess elastic. And and any loose threads. Now we're going to work on the front of our dress. Now that we have our 2 pieces for the center front, we are going to, if you have a serger anyway, you're going to serge the length of the front of this center front piece. Now the center front piece does not have this little lip that you're going to see here. You see this here? That is the side of the dress. So this side here is the side of the dress, and this side is the center front. It also has notches here and notches here, and that's how you know that you're working with the center front. So if you have a serger, go ahead and finish the long edge of this piece and of the second piece. Once you've done that, we're going to pin it and sew them together. Okay, I have put my front pieces right sides together, and I'm going to pin at the notches just to help me keep my pieces aligned. So I'm just going to pin here, and then I'm going to pin again at this other notch, and then I'm going to pin at the bottom, and then I'm going to pin one more time just to keep everything together. Now the front piece, the center front piece, has a notch here, and then it has a notch here at this bend, and that's where we're going to start sewing. So starting at this notch here and working with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, you're going to sew all the way down. Now when you open up your front piece, remove that pin, it will look like this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be working with each piece first. So we're going to work with one side, and you're going to fold this right sides together, and you're going to match the notches, and you're going to pin at that notch. Okay, we're creating the tubes that are going to join at the neck. So starting at the top, you're going to sew all the way down until you get to that notch. Remove the pin and backstitch. Now we're going to take the other side, and with right sides facing, you're going to do the same thing. Now your front piece looks a little weird, but it kind of looks like this. Okay, so put your hands through both the tubes. You're going to turn one right side out, and then you're going to slip the one that we just turned right side out inside the one that is wrong side out. And what you want to do once you have it inside is you want to align the seams and that little notch that I had you cut into the top. So you're going to pin at the seam, and at this point, if you open this and look inside, your right sides should be facing each other. And pin at the notch. If you have a removable arm on your machine, go ahead and remove it. And you're going to sew all the way around. So, and we're using 1/2 inch seam allowances. So now when you pull this out, you have created that tube for your neck, which gets placed like this, right? And these instructions are also in the pattern envelope, so if you want to look at the pictures in the pattern envelope to help you, that's fine, or you could just follow along here with me. Now that we have our front pattern piece and the top is done, right? Okay, now we want to finish off the edge that's close to our side. So right here, we're going to turn it in a 1/2 inch to the wrong side. So fold over a 1/2 inch towards the wrong side. And you're going to sew. So the side should look like this with a finished edge. And then just do that to the other side. You should go ahead and press that. If you have your ironing table set up already, go ahead and give it a press. And now that we have a finished edge, we're going to lay our top pattern piece, our back pattern piece over our front pattern piece with right sides facing. And we're going to pin at the sides. And then match your notches and pin. Pin a couple more times to help you keep your layers together. And then of course pin at the bottom. And you're going to pin the other way, the other side the same way. So pin at the bottom, and then in the middle, and then at the top. And make sure that you aligned your notch. Now that I have my front to back pinned at the sides, I'm going to start at towards the bottom, and I'm going to sew from this bottom up. You're going to sew the other side the same exact way, starting from the bottom, sew all the way up. When you're done sewing both your sides, go ahead and turn your dress inside out. You should go ahead and try it on now. If it doesn't fit or it's too loose, pinch out however much more you want to take in. Turn it wrong sides out again, and then sew however much more you need to sew on the sides so that it's a little more fitted, and then try it on again. When you get the right fit, then you can go ahead and serge the sides of your dress. So go ahead and, if you have tried it on and it fits, finish the side of your dress using your serger or zigzag stitch, whichever you're using. And all that's left to do is for you to sew the hem of your dress. So we're going to be using a 1.5 inch wide hem. So I want you to turn 1.5 inches. And then you're going to sew with your presser foot aligned against the edge of the fabric that we just turned over. And you're going to sew all the way around using a zigzag stitch, because you want your the hem of your skirt or your dress to stretch a little bit when you put it on. You don't want the stitches to pop. Once you're done sewing all the way around the hem of your dress, go ahead and take it to your ironing table, give it a good press, and you are all done. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial. And here's the finished dress. I made mine in black, and you can see all of those pictures on the blog, www.mimigstyle.com. The link is also in the description box below. And don't forget to sub to my YouTube channel. In case you're wondering, once you get the dress onto your body and you need to put it over your head, you're just going to twist and put it over, and you're all done. I will talk to you guys again really soon. Peace.